Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Bright Connections. I'm your host, BK. Joining me this week, one of my good friends and fellow Twitch streamers and gamers, and just has really become a good friend over the last about a year or so, a lot more than where we were in the past. And it's been great getting to know him better and been great spending time with him. So, Paul, welcome to the show. Thanks for agreeing to come along.
How's it going, BK? Thank you for inviting me.
You bet, man. Going good. It's another nice day. For once, we don't actually have rain. It's been rainy a lot the last month, but I don't know what's the weather like down there in Texas.
Actually, quite the opposite. I don't even remember the last time that we've had rain, and it's just been 90 and above every single day. Dry heat.
Oh.
Yeah.
I guess you're probably used to it now, though, right?
I don't really think you can get used to that kind of temperature. No.
Fair. Are you getting hit by the hurricane rain at all? You getting any of the remnants of that?
No, I don't think so. I think we're just outside of that scope.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't sure. I know that there's a lot of talk about I can't even remember the name of it, but the big hurricane coming through hitting Louisiana.
Yeah, I heard about that, but we haven't caught much of it. I think we might be just enough inland to not get any of that.
Gotcha.
Speaking of getting used to the weather, though, I will say this though. Although you can't get used to like the 90 and above temperature, like the base temperature is nice. So what I mean by that is, right after I graduated high school, my family and I took a trip to Disney World in December, right?
Yep.
So December for us in Pennsylvania is like, it's nice if it's 40 degrees.
We're excited if it's
Yeah. We went down to Florida and it was like 65 degrees. And so me and my entire family, we were all wearing, I think I remember specifically wearing a tank top and shorts. And we were all mind blown seeing everyone walk around in 65-degree weather with like sweatshirts and sweatpants and like just bundled up.
Yeah.
And I never understood that until we came down here and we moved down here, and the base temperature down here, like for the winter, is probably about 60 degrees or so. Like you'll have your occasional days where it's lower, but it's pretty calm down here.
Yeah.
And
so when you get those 60-degree days, you're like, oh, it's a little chilly.
Yeah, which is funny because like I remember in the summers in Pennsylvania, my dad, like I'm pretty sure he had the thermostat always at like 65 or something like that.
Wow.
Yeah, and for here we have it I think I start to freeze when we have it at 72. And so if it gets anytime, like I'm not looking forward to coming back to Pennsylvania for that weather, just for it to be like 50 degrees and that be considered a good day and I'm freezing to death.
Yep. Well, I guess it's different though when it's always that hot, your house is kind of always warm too. So when you have that thermostat set at 72, it's still running a lot. So that's probably why it's on the colder end at 72. But yeah, that's crazy. The difference of climate, between north and south and what people get used to and what their bodies kind of adjust to. It's crazy.
Yeah. And I think this will be this upcoming Christmas, I'll be finally coming home to Pennsylvania. Nice. Last Christmas, we decided not to because of COVID and everything. And we just didn't want to put any of our families at risk.
Right.
But yeah, so jumping from this nice Texas weather for the last, about over 2 years now, and going straight into Pennsylvania winter. Oh goodness.
It's gonna be a new experience for you. A new old experience. Yep.
Exactly.
Yep. Nice. So not only did Paul join me today, but it's also a special day for Paul. It is actually his birthday this very day. So what a perfect time to have him on. It was a kind of a coincidence, but hey, couldn't have asked for a better guest and a better friend to be on today. And so happy birthday, Paul. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and hope you will continue to have a wonderful day and a wonderful year.
Heck yeah, thank you. Yeah. My son gave me the best gift ever this morning. I woke up at 8 a.m., which is extremely sleeping in for me. And he decided to sleep in as well, of all days.
Nice.
Yeah.
What a gift. Just a piece of sleep. That's great. That's great. Yeah. Nice. So today, Paul and I are going to talk on one of the best shows that at least we've experienced in our time so far, and how it related to us and just how much it meant to us. The show How I Met Your Mother. So How I Met Your Mother was a huge influence for me. It was one of those shows that I would always make sure I would sit down and watch it live. You know, not many people do that these days, where they sit down and they're watching a show live. I was always there to watch that show. It was one of those shows where I just could not wait for the next episode to be broadcast. And then I obviously, after it was over, I bought it all on Blu-ray and was watching through, binging through it as well. It was one of those shows that it was awesome. It was such a good show. I think it obviously did a lot better than I think they imagined it would.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a sitcom, but it did so well at all the other, the love stories and the relationships between people, and just the dealing with real life situations, and how these guys, how these characters just would do everyday life stuff, and how they would react to it. Just a lot of amazing moments. And I know I would always tune in to see what was going to happen in Ted's life, and all his crazy love stories, and Barney and his craziness, and Robin and everyone. So How I Met Your Mother, and it was such a great show. Such a great show. So it was 9 seasons long, and I think some people have said maybe they didn't need to go that long, but I mean, like I said, it was just such a good show that it's tough. It was tough seeing it end. It was definitely tough seeing it end. And so with it being, I guess I should kind of give more on what the show actually was. So How I Met Your Mother was the story of this gentleman named Ted, where it starts out, the whole show is he's talking to his children, and he's telling the story of what happened in the past and everything in his life that led up to meeting their mother, his wife, their mother. And it was just all the craziness that happened leading up to those moments, and how all these different moments connected to that moment where he met her and everything. And it was so cool how everything connected. I mean, there was stuff in season 8 and season 9 that connected all the way back to season 1, and everything was intertwined, and everything, brought back memories from earlier episodes. And it was amazing. It really was. Paul, you want to touch on your thoughts on the show in general?
This show was, it was huge. Honestly, it was huge. For some reason, I don't understand why there isn't as much of like a huge following for this show as there is for Friends. But whenever somebody asks me, somebody always says, do you like Friends or this show better? And I can't remember what they're talking about when they say this show, because it's never How I Met Your Mother that they say. It's always Friends and something else. And I'm like, both of them are wrong. It's How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the Friends, or what was the other show? Yeah, I don't know.
Somebody just asked me that a couple days ago, and I can't remember what they said.
Yeah, you're like, you're wrong. It's How I Met Your Mother. That's what
exactly.
It is. Yeah, but I mean, were you one of those devoted, sit down every week and watch it, or did you kind of more just binge it when it came out?
No, this was one that I made sure I freed up my time and set at the TV to watch.
Yep. Yeah. It was that engaging. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I know for me, I think it helped because I related so much to the main character, and we'll get more into that in a little bit, but just how I related to him and everything that he went through in his life. And, seeing his stories, I wanted to see where things were going next.
And
And
I
then,
think, oh, I'm sorry.
no, you're good. Good.
I think the power of this show being on in the era of pre-Netflix, where
Yeah.
you had to sit there and wait until the next week for the new episode was, it wasn't like one of those shows that was full of suspense. Like they didn't always have like these crazy cliffhangers or anything. It was actually like the substance that they had in their episodes that kept you wanting to come back for the next week.
Yeah.
Which I really liked.
I mean, obviously they did have their cliffhangers, but yeah, I know what you mean. Like the episodes were so full themselves that you just knew tuning in the next week there was going to be another great story, no matter if there was suspense leading up to it or not. Yeah, definitely. I mean, there's so many iconic moments from them just sitting in the bar, just telling a story from their weekend or whatever, to, I mean, there's just a numerous amount of moments. It has been a little while since the show was done, and I don't remember a ton of moments solely. I haven't watched the show in a while, but I mean, going through, looking at some quotes and some articles on best moments, it really brought back memories. And it just, the show was, and in addition to all the substance and all the plot and everything, all with the love stories and everything, it was still a sitcom, and it was still funny. It was very funny.
I've laughed so hard in this show. Like this, probably out of all the sitcoms, this is probably one of the ones that I've actually like cried laughing in some of the moments in this show.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, it was honestly just a perfect mix. It was a perfect mix of, it wasn't one of those shows that was just stupid funny, and there was like not really any storyline. You were laughing, but it was one that still had enough life connections, something that you can relate to, that it hit you in so many different ways. But to go through some of the best moments, I mean, I looking through this article here, just trying to remember some of these great moments you had. I mean, even in the very first episode, they threw you for a twist where Ted meets Robin for the first time, and in that episode, you kind of get the inkling that, man, this is the mother already. The way Ted looks at her and sees her, and how they portray her and everything on the show and or on the episode, and from everything that he did for her by taking the blue horn to her and presenting with the blue horn, and how much just the way that they portrayed her. And then they throw a curveball at the very end when Ted's talking to his kids again in the present time, and he's talking to his kids and he says, and that's the story of how I met your Aunt Robin. And it was just like, what? Oh, that wasn't the mother? Wait, what? And what made it great is that they spent the entire show, a lot of fans spent the entire show like just trying to contemplate that the whole time. Like, how is this not the mother? They have so much in common. They work so well together. And it was a great storyline to the whole show. And it's still, to this day, it's still one of those, like, should he have ended up with Robin? And I guess we'll have to touch on the end here in a little bit as well. But just from that very first moment where they threw that plot twist in there, it was just like, okay, I see you. So from the very start, it was gripping. It was gripping, that's for sure. Some other moments here. I mean, obviously, one of the probably the best moments, or one of the biggest moments throughout the entire show, was Barney and his quotes and his book. I can't remember what the book was called. Do you remember what the book was called that he had?
Oh no, I don't remember.
The playbook.
Yeah.
I think it was just called The Playbook. And it was basically just like not like dating tips, but like I guess almost like pickup store or pickup strategies. So Barney in the show was a player, if you will, not one to looking to settle down with a woman. He was one that would go on short dates with people, and so it was a good part of the show because he was more one of the more comedic um, aspects of the show for sure. And so he has this playbook, and you just would every couple of shows. I think they didn't really introduce it till a few seasons in, I think, and or at least really diving into it. And so you would always have these quotes that he would read from the playbook and things that he'd go by in this playbook, and it was so funny. It was so great.
So I actually remember a play from one of his, and I'm not gonna say whether I tried it or not. No, I haven't. But the play, so the book was like a collection of all of his like tricks and scams on how to pick up women and whatnot. And one of the funnier plays that I remember is it was called The Naked Man.
Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
Whenever the girl leaves the room to freshen up or whatever, or go to the bathroom, and when she comes out, you're just sitting on the couch naked.
Yeah. And he's like, well,
yeah, well,
oops, here I am. Yeah, that's a good one. Didn't I think Ted tried it too, and it didn't work at all or something. Yeah. That was a good one. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the girl Ted was with was like, no, get out now.
Like, what are you doing?
What are you doing? Yeah. Yeah, but that's basically what the playbook was. It's just plays like that, where just things that he would come up with that would try to, I don't want to say trick women, but just they were like pickup lines or pickup plays, I guess, if you will, just things that he would do. But what makes it all better is the change that Barney went through, throughout the show, that he finally ends up changing from that player and being this sweet, wholehearted, want to settle down with Robin. So that Robin was the girl that he actually ends up falling in love with. Well, they fall in love with each other actually, and it was one of those moments that everybody can change. You can be one of these guys that you never think that he's going to be one to settle down with somebody, and then all of a sudden you find that right person, and you do. And so that was another one of those bright moments in the show that was a nice little change to what you were led on to believe with his character.
Especially since they didn't really show hints of that transformation until fairly late into the series.
Yeah. Yeah, it was all of a sudden he just spoke up his mind to Robin. He's like, I've loved you for a while now. And it was one of those moments just like, whoa. Yeah, it took Robin by surprise. It took probably all the fans by surprise. And it was a great moment. And to go along with Barney, one of his biggest quotes was he would always, when something amazing or great would happen, he would always use the quote legendary, but he would spice it up from time to time, and he would never just say, oh man, that was legendary. No, it was always something like that was just absolutely legend, wait for it, dairy. And it was just a fun little thing that he would always do, but he would also change it up, not only from legend, wait for it, dairy, but like legend, 3/4 gonna go to the mall and get a piece of pie and come back, and then it's gonna be dairy, something crazy like that. And it was funny. It was just another one of those funny little moments. I'm trying to think of some other really significant moments here. We've got this whole subplot with Robin and her fear of the mall.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, she hates the mall, and basically you didn't know exactly why she did until until near the very end, where you find out that she actually did like a song of
Yeah, she was a Canadian pop star
yes,
in her teens.
yes, and it had something to do with it. It wasn't a song all about the mall or whatever, and
Yeah.
she was so embarrassed by it because it was corny. It was corny. But you know, she did a pop song about the mall, and you never, and it was funny because they would always bring up the mall and she would always just shun it away. And eventually you find out she was, you know, a pop singer related to the mall, and it was hilarious. It was great.
And just to give you another idea of the kind of character Barney was, he ended up finding a copy of the tape of her playing that song. And I think he ended up, I don't remember what the topic of it was, but he ended up finding the video of another song that she did. I think it was about a breakup or some boy. Do you remember that?
Vaguely.
But
yeah.
he always would, he had that like in his back pocket. That was like another one of his
moves.
things. Yep.
Yeah.
And he would always play that to embarrass her.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Another
switching up the mood here on these moments. One that I thought was very significant that I personally hadn't experienced, but I knew friends that had, and just putting myself in their shoes during this episode was huge. And this was one of the episodes that I actually shed some tears for, was whenever Marshall was going through his father being sick and passing.
Yeah, the way that the friend group, I mean, this friend group was, as you could imagine, one of the closest group of friends that you could think of. I mean, they did everything together. They shared everything with each other. They went through so many moments together. I mean, just being there for each other in hard times and celebrating happy times. It's, you know, in a way, it's kind of what you want in a friend group, what a lot of people dream of. And one of those moments, yeah, like you said, was the passing of Marshall's father, and to see how they came together for him in that tough time was really touching. You know, indeed, it was. I can't remember, was Marshall was fighting with his father or something too, and then he passed, I think.
Yeah, I think one of the last conversations they had wasn't like a conversation you would want your last one to be. And so he was torn up about that, because I know later, it was either later on in that episode or in an episode that they referenced back to it, that he had actually found a voicemail on his phone from his father. Yeah. And if I remember correctly, I think it was just a pocket dial, and it was just of his father just fumbling around in his pocket with his phone or something. And that was the last thing he had to remember him by.
Yeah, so it's definitely one of those moments that hit you, and it's like, don't take your loved ones for granted. You know, it's said a lot, but sometimes unfortunately, it takes something like this to remind other people to don't take it. You know, it's truly, do not take it for granted. You know, tell your loved ones that you love them each day. When you have a fight, make up and tell them you love them, and just try to move on. You know, life's short, life is unpredictable, and you never know. So be there for one another, you know, be there to support your friends in tough situations. And yeah, that was definitely one of those bigger moments where it kind of took a step back from the being funny and being silly, and just was like, whoa, real life happens. You know, real life has tough situations, but it's good to have friends that support you. Yeah, that was definitely a big one for sure. Definitely a big one for sure.
Yeah, that was a moment too that, although pretty much the whole show did this several times, but this was one of those moments too where, you know, you think back, like a lot of times you think that like someone who is successful or is popular or something has a lot of friends, and that's like what you want to strive to be.
Yeah.
But that episode specifically was one that really reminded you that you don't really need all of those friends or anything. You just need that small, tight core of friends that will always be there for you no matter what, whether it be good or bad.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah, just without even having to ask or think about it, just being there. And yeah, like you said, you could be as popular or as well liked as you want to be, but you got to have that core group of close friends. Indeed. Yep. So some other more funny moments though. I remember there was the Thanksgiving, the slapsgiving.
Oh, yeah.
So that was a great moment. They had a bet. I can't remember what the bet was about, but whoever would lose the bet would have to sit in a chair and take a big old wind up slap right to the face. And they played it up so well that they would do everything they could not to lose that bet.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember it happened a couple times, the slapsgiving, and it was so funny because they would just dread it. And I think it ended up being later on in the show, like they didn't even like they would do the slap bet out of context. Like they would just do it randomly. Like they would just be in the middle of doing something, and all of a sudden he turn around and the one who owed him the slap would just slap him super hard randomly out of nowhere. But yeah, that was one of those moments that was always in the background, kind of waiting to see when it was going to come up again.
And unfortunately for Barney, he was usually the main recipient of those slaps.
Yes, he was. Yep.
That actually brings me to another moment. Whenever I forget what exactly Barney had done, but this was like much later in the series, and I think it was Marshall that pretended that he had gone all around the world to train and learn how to have the most powerful and fast and accurate slap.
Yep.
Because he owed Barney like one or two more slaps, and he was like trying to terrify him.
Yes. Yeah. That's what I mean. It was part of it where he would the dread of not knowing when it was coming, and Marshall would just be like this and just would wind up and be like, "Nah, not yet." And Barney was like, just get it over with, please. Yeah. That was great.
That was probably the suspense that he put on it, and just the constant fear is probably what hurt worse more than just the slap itself. Like you said, Barney was like, just get it over already, because anytime Marshall would lift his hand or make any kind of like fast movement with his arm, Barney would flinch. Gonna get slapped. Yeah.
Yep. He'd flinch in fear, like, oh my God, is it coming? Yep. Some other big moments where it seemed like always the Halloween parties. So they were big on Halloween, and there were a few Halloweens where Ted kind of he would meet a girl, and then he'd think that would be the one. And there was one girl, again, I can't remember her name, but he met her in one Halloween party, and she like disappeared, and he hoped that she would come back again the next year and be like the same person or whatever, or be like the same wearing the same costume, and that they'd meet again. And he'd sit there like actually like year after year, I think, even at the same Halloween party, hoping she'd show up again. I think she did at one point, actually. But yeah, Halloween, they always have fun in Halloween, dressing up in these crazy costumes and doing these crazy things. But again, and I remember specifically the one Halloween that it was again one of those life moments. And Robin was going through a tough time. I can't remember exactly what it was, but after the party was over, they would always go to the roof of Ted's apartment building, and they'd always go to the roof when they needed air or just to get away from everything. And they'd always go up there, and they'd have the most wholesome talks. And it's, again, one of those moments where it takes away from, or takes you a sidestep from all the crazy and fun and comedic parts. And it's a friend reaching out to another friend, just being there for them, just talking them through, giving life advice, providing support. And it just was, oh, there it is. But just providing support for another friend when they need it most. And it was one of those, that's one of the main reasons that this show pulled me in. Those moments that just was, they were so wholesome, so heartwarming, and just it hit you, because I think at that time I wasn't quite at the same age group that they are, which I actually kind of am now, come to think of it. But I was starting to get into those moments where it's just like, wow, that makes sense. That makes sense. Ooh, I feel that, and it hit you more, and it connected with you. And so there was a lot of episodes where, like I said, and usually it was Ted and Robin. It seemed like a lot, that just, they were so close and such great friends. And when one of them was having issues or going through something, the other one would always be there to talk them out of it. And so going up to that roof was always such a big moment. You would know as soon as they were climbing up to that roof that something wholesome was going to happen. And
actually, speaking of that, that brings me to another moment. Like you said, they always go up to the roof, but in this particular moment, it was Ted's 31st birthday. And on the year they showed it, his 30th birthday was in the show too. And on his 30th birthday, he was savaged by a goat. Yeah. I don't remember why, but they brought a goat to the party, and he just was not about it. He got attacked by the goat, I think, and that kicked off that that was like a very bad sign for his next year. So for his 31st birthday at this time, for this one, he ended up seeing that same goat again, and he thought it was going to be a bad year. And just some background information on that. Ted's an architect. I don't remember if you brought that up, but he's an architect, and he was designing these buildings. And at the current time of his 31st birthday, he was designing a building that he didn't really care about. Like, it wasn't something that meant something to him. And so when they were on this roof having one of these heartfelt moments, Lily was telling him that he should just take the leap and stop designing a building that he doesn't care about, and and just pretty much go after what you want, and stop wasting your time doing things that aren't something that you particularly want to do.
Yeah.
And that has a message in itself right there. But that whole conversation had brought on an actual very funny scene. It led Marshall to jump off of the roof of their apartment onto the apartment beside them. Yeah. And when they were hyping this up, they didn't make it seem like it was like just a 2-foot gap and like just a slight drop, but they made it this big epic thing, and it was really just like the smallest of jumps.
It was.
But to show Ted that he could do it, they all did it, and then he eventually jumped over to the other side as well.
Yeah, a lot of hidden meanings there. Just like you said, even though it was a tiny little gap and even a drop, like you said, so that there was no real danger to it or anything, but just the significance of taking the leap, of getting out of your comfort zone and doing something that you want to do, living out your dream, as opposed to just doing something just for doing it, was a huge thing. And I believe it was Lily who said, and it's one of the quotes I remember her saying, that something along the lines of where she was getting older, like later in the show, and she was like, I feel like I waited too long in my life to pursue my dream and to do what I wanted to do. And so she was kind of telling people, somebody else to don't wait that long. Just do what you want to do. Live out your dream, live out your life. And as again, one of those moments, where, and like you said, with the whole group jumping first to show Ted that he can do it, it was not a sign, but a one of those things that we're there for you, we're supporting you, even though it's just a small little jump, it signifies more. It's taking the leap, and yeah, that was a big moment as well. That was a big moment as well.
Taking the leap in, knowing that your friends have your back.
Yeah. Yep. Other big moments that kind of went throughout the whole series were the interventions. So each character kind of at one point or another had a bad habit that they were going through, and the rest of the group would have an intervention to talk with them about it and break them out of it. And I remember some of them, Robin was just getting just completely orange, like just spray tans, just ridiculous spray tans. Lily had a fake British accent that she just kept talking in this British accent. I can't remember Barney. I can't remember what Barney's was. Ted had I think Ted's was, he kept pronouncing things really weird, like really pretentious. He just kept pronouncing things like ridiculous, like stop talking like that, Ted. Just just talk normal. I can't remember what Marshall's was either, but just like I said, throughout the show, it was great because they would always trick the person into coming over for the intervention. They'd like invite them there thinking that they were going to hang out and do something. All of a sudden they'd be sitting there like it's intervention time. And the person being intervened would always be like, I don't need an intervention. No. But again, it was one of those support things. They recognized that the person was going through something that probably wasn't in their best interest, and let's break them out of it.
And I don't remember, or I don't know why I remember this part specifically, but one of the things that showed up in every intervention as well was it was always placed in Ted's apartment, I think.
Yeah.
And two, they always had just that plain white sign with the word with intervention. It looks like painted on there in red.
Yes, they always had the banner. Yeah, so he had a banner that he found in his closet. That I think that's what his was. That's what Ted's was. He was I think he was the first one, and they brought it out for him when he was I think moving too fast with Stella, if I remember correctly, that he was just trying to go way too fast with Stella. So they had an intervention on that. And then, like you said, since, after that first one, they would always bring out that banner. And it was always funny because the person being intervened would always walk out in front of the banner, not realizing that it was behind them.
Yep.
And they'd always walk out and they turn around and they're like, no. Oh, man. Yep.
Speaking of that banner, that actually reminded me of what Barney's intervention was for. And it was his excessive use of magic tricks using pyrotechnics, which ended up being the end of the banner.
Yes, that's right. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Barney was all of a sudden just ridiculous, just doing magic trick after magic trick, just every minute. Was just doing these magic tricks on people, and just like, oh, here's the thing behind your ear. And every time he'd walk up to somebody, and it got obsessive, and they just had to pull an intervention. Yeah, that was great, absolutely great. One last thing that one of the moments that I remember was the trip that they made, the 500 miles. I'm gonna be 500 miles. Where they had a trip, and they just the CD player, I think it was a CD player at that time. The CD player would only play the one song, I'm gonna be 500 miles, which is a good song, by the way. But when you play it over and over, it's like, oh my god. And so they're making this huge long trip, and this song was just playing over and over and over and over. And it was one of those episodes that it was funny. It just would it really, it was probably the one moment that Ted and Marshall really became extremely close. Because I think it was back with like early when they first met, like I think in their college days.
Yeah, I think the first time they had taken that trip was I forget who was driving, but one of them was taking the other one home.
Yeah, I think it was Marshall driving Ted.
Yeah, taking him home from college break or something.
Yeah. And yeah, it just they bonded over this song playing over and over and over for hours. And it was funny. It was a great moment. And it showed how, two guys can become best of friends over something so silly.
Yeah.
It quickly changed from this song being super annoying to at the end, like near the end of the trip, they were just singing along to it, just screaming at the top of their lungs to the song. And it was a great bonding moment for sure. It was a great bonding moment. So those are some of the big moments. Do you have any more that you really wanted to bring up?
Yeah, I had one more that I wanted to mention. And this is also the episode was whenever Marshall was telling the rest of the gang that him and Lily are trying to get pregnant.
Yeah.
And so I had to look up a quote for this one because it cracked me up. And just taking a step back here real quick, one of the characters that I relate to the most is Marshall. And I will admit that I didn't feel a relation to him on my first watch through of the show. It was later on when I had binge watched it on Netflix that my life circumstances have changed. So I then started relating to him. But this quote cracks me up because it's not the same way that I worded it, but it's kind of exactly how I felt whenever my wife and I were trying to have a child. He said to the gang, this was in preparation to tell them. He was practicing trying to tell them.
Yeah.
He said, "I can't wait to tell the gang. This is one of those moments you dream about. Guys, Lily and I are having unprotected sex." I just got the chills.
I just got the chills. That's great.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. So there's definitely I guess we never really mentioned Marshall and Lily as being a couple, but yeah, there was actually a time where they split up, which was one of those moments you were like, I never thought that was going to happen. So they had their difficulties, just like a lot of people in life do. They have difficulties, but they find their way back to each other in the end, and could not have been closer, more close or happier or anything. So yeah, but when they decided to have kids, that's funny. That's great. I got the chills. But yeah, there's a lot of moments. I think they even did a couple episodes where they flash forwarded to like the future even.
Mm-hmm.
And they had kids, right? If I remember correctly, Marshall and Lily had kids.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure.
Mm-hmm. One of the big storylines of the show actually was, which will kind of takes into the next topic. But anyway, Robin, she finds out at one point in the show that she can't have kids. And I mean, it's heartbreaking, when you find out something like that, but she kind of takes on the thought that she doesn't really want them anyway. At least that's the way she kind of plays it out to be.
Mm-hmm.
But as the show goes on, you kind of found out that she does want kids, but she had it in her mind that because she can't, that she doesn't, that kind of thought process. And it leads to one of the most sincere and absolutely touching moments, at least for me, where Ted finally coaxes out of her that she, this news that she can't have kids, but she kind of really does want them. And in order to just try to make her feel better and talk to her and console her, Ted puts on this big act. It was around Christmas time. He puts on this big act where he decorates the apartment in Christmas lights and all kinds of Christmas decorations, and plays AC/DC to I can't remember which song it was. I think
Thunderstruck, I think.
I think so. That sounds right. But he plays AC/DC and the lights are going off to the tune of the song, and it makes Robin feel better. And that was one of the biggest moments for me, that Ted went through all of that to make Robin feel better.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of leads into what I wanted to talk about next, on how Ted doing something like that is what makes me feel like I completely am Ted incarnate. So you mentioned that you were very relatable to Marshall. I, without a doubt, feel like if I was in that show, I would be Ted. And if Ted was in real life, he would be me. Ted and I have so much in common. And that was I think one of the big reasons that I really like the show as well, because I was so relatable to that one character.
Mm-hmm.
And so those kind of moments where Ted would do anything, put on a huge production to make somebody feel better, it's kind of what I try to do in my life as well. I would do anything for anybody, especially friends. And sometimes I go out of my way to put on a big production to just make somebody feel better. And it's one of those moments that make you realize that people like that are friends you want to hold on to, whether it be Ted or whether it be the whole group in general. It's just that they are willing to do anything for their friends. And so there was that moment with Ted where I was just like, oh my gosh, that's me. That is me on the TV screen. But there was that moment. There was some of the other moments with, being honest, Ted's relationship with Stella. So a little backstory on Ted and Stella. Stella was some kind of doctor. I can't remember. She wasn't a plastic surgeon, right? She was a...
No, I want to say dermatologist.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But she was, I think that's right. Yeah, she was a dermatologist, and she, obviously very busy schedule. And so he met her and he kept pursuing her. And she was like, I don't really want to lead you on. I don't have time for a relationship right now. I don't have time. I don't have time. I don't have time. And so Ted puts on this cute little cute little act. And he's like, all right, listen, you don't have time. We're going to make time. Give me your lunch break. She's like, my lunch break is 5 minutes long. I take about a 5-minute lunch break. He's like, that's all I need. So he puts on this production again, where he takes her on this 5-minute date. He takes her out of her office, and they first they get in the limo. And what makes it, they get in the limo, go like 20 feet along the sidewalk, get out. There's a table set up with dinner, and they have a 30-second dinner. They get back up, and get into the limo again, go to another 20 feet, and they go for dessert, ice cream or something. And then they get back in the limo and they go one more place and go there. So he put on this 5-minute date where they just were going, like 100 feet down a sidewalk with multiple different stations. And it was super cute. I loved it. I thought it was so creative, and it just was one of those moments where you're like, you know what, Ted is going to do anything he can to, he's interested in this girl. He really likes this girl, and even though she doesn't have time, he's gonna make time. He's gonna use whatever time he can get. And it's just one of those Ted moments for sure, and kind of showed his character, his personality of willingness to put himself out there. He wears his heart on his sleeve, and that is one of my biggest calling cards as well, is that I always put my heart on my sleeve. I will tell anybody how I feel. I definitely fall pretty quickly for people, that's for sure. But so anyway, going back to Ted and Stella, they went on this date and they started dating for a while, and eventually Ted asked her to marry him, and she agreed. They had this whole production of getting married, and it was like it was early to mid season in the show. So you're kind of like, well, wait, what's going on here? Well, how are they getting married in the beginning of, or the middle of I guess we didn't really know it was going to be the middle of the show, but so these Ted and Stella are getting married, and they you can tell they're moving fast. They're moving fast, but they seemed to like they really liked each other. And so Ted and Stella are at the wedding, and Stella just ups and leaves, just abandons it. And that was a harsh moment. That was a tough moment for sure in the show. At their wedding day, and just to see the impact it made on Ted on having his fiance leave him at the altar. I mean, I can't imagine that.
Yeah,
that's tough. That's tough. And it definitely made Ted not want to date again for a while. That's for sure. I mean, why would you? But, and in a way that kind of, I feel like in a way I kind of relate to that. I obviously never had anything that significant, but I felt like I've been let down at times, by people, by relationships. And I know a lot of people have, but it hurts, and it makes you feel, if it makes you feel like giving up. But at the same time, just like Ted did, he moved on with his life, and he eventually went on to the next girl who ended up being better, and the next girl who ended up being better. And it brings you hope that even though you can be let down, there's always a bright moment to look forward to next. There's always something else to look forward to next. So you're going to go through tough times. You're going to go through tough moments, even very tough, like getting left at the altar. But you're still going to be able to push through, especially with the support of friends, and you'll be able to move on and look for the next good moment. I don't know. What do you think? Can you see a little bit of Ted in me, Paul?
A little bit of Ted is an understatement.
Yeah. But
yeah, you're one of the most kind-hearted people I know, always thinking about other people.
That was Ted.
Yep.
That was Ted. And that's, like I said, that's one of the reasons that I really connected with the show, is just being so relatable to one character, especially the main character, or one of the main characters at least. But yeah. So Ted incarnate right here. I mean, some of the stuff that he went through and the things that happened to him, and some of the things that he did for his friends really gave me hope for myself, and gave me direction on how I want to continue to be as well. So that even through all the bad things, he would always look forward to the next good thing, and that gave me hope on me as well. That I might go through bad stuff as well, but there's the next big good thing that's going to happen as well. So, so let's talk about how the show wrapped up. So the whole show again is all about how Ted and his friends and the adventures they went through, to everything that led up to meeting the mother of the two kids. So throughout the series, you would get hints and moments and things that led up to meeting. And one of the big things was the yellow umbrella. So we actually never talked about that yet. So there was this yellow umbrella that he left at I think it was a nightclub or something, early in the series. And so this yellow umbrella, he lost, or at least they thought he lost, and it was picked up by who we realized later in the series was the mother. And this yellow umbrella appears throughout the series at different times, and eventually he sees it in I can't remember if he was dating the one girl, but it was the roommate of the mother. It was the roommate of the mother, and he saw it at their apartment, and he saw the umbrella, and he's like, "That's my umbrella," and she's like, "No, that's my roommate's." And so there was a whole big thing on whose umbrella it was and everything. And so as the series comes towards the end, Ted is waiting at a train station after a wedding. I can't remember whose wedding it was. Was it Barney and Robin's wedding?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a Barney and Robin's wedding. And after the wedding, he's waiting at the train station. I think people were kind of like talking about going their separate ways or something, or moving away or doing something. And so he's waiting at this train station, and this girl walks up next to him with this yellow umbrella, and he's like, "That's my umbrella." And he's like, "No, this is my umbrella." And what makes it even better is that there were initials on the umbrella. And the initials were, what was her middle initial? It was T something M. And so it's Ted Mosby. And then you find out that the girl's name was Tracy Morgan. No, not Tracy Morgan. Yeah, Tracy Morgan. Yeah, Tracy Morgan. No, Tracy. Oh shoot! Do you remember the mother's name? Tracy.
I don't. Oh, Tracy McConnell.
Yeah, Tracy McConnell. Yep. And so they're arguing back and forth. It's like, no, that stands for Ted Mosby. No, it's Tracy McConnell. And they're going back and forth, arguing about whose umbrella it was, and that's how they first met.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those moments that it was a moment of serendipity. And that's one of the biggest things for me. I always believe in as well, is that you're just going to have one of those moments in your life where you meet this person and you're like, whoa, you're taken by surprise, just a complete coincidence, complete chance. And you meet this person and you're like, wow, this person's awesome. And so that's the first time they meet, is at this train station over this umbrella that, this umbrella was throughout the whole series. And it's kind of like the focal point of, the connection between the two of them. And so they introduced her. I think they actually introduced her at the season before the last, but it wasn't that moment. It wasn't the moment that they met. So you kind of knew who the mother was going to be going into the last season. But there was still more on how they actually met and how they connected and went through falling in love. And so they meet and fall in love and get married. And so which leads us to the very end of the series. Now, the ending has caused quite a bit of controversy between some of the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to know what our thoughts are on the ending. So they did release a alternate ending. And but the released ending, the theatrical, whatever you want to call it, what they showed on TV, the ending is that, yes, Ted and the mother meet, they fall in love, they get married, they have their children, and then like 10 years or maybe even less than 10 years, a couple of years down the road, 5 years down the road, Tracy ends up getting sick, like deathly sick, like with cancer or something. And they spend, some time a lot of time in the hospital, and Tracy actually ends up passing away. She ends up dying. And it was one of those moments. And after she dies, Ted comes back to the present time, talking to his children again, and he kind of tells them, it's like, this is the story of your mother, but it also leads me to want to ask you one question. Would you guys be okay with me reconnecting relationship wise with your Aunt Robin? So at this point, Barney and Robin actually end up splitting up again. So Robin and Barney don't end up quite working out. And so Ted asks his children at the very end of this show, would you be okay with me going after Aunt Robin? And the kids are like, well, yeah. It was one of those moments where they brought this whole show was how he met the mother and how everything that led up to meeting the mother and falling in love with the mother, and then they just kind of killed her off, and it was just like, hold on, what?
Yeah, I wasn't too happy with all of that.
Yeah, so I was not either. I didn't care for that ending. Yes, I understand that Ted and Robin have such a good connection, and that they wanted to bring in the option of them two falling in love again. And I guess it does relate back to the very beginning of the show where it was them two and Ted falling in love with Robin and bringing her the blue horn, the blue French horn, and everything. But at the same time, there was nothing wrong with in my opinion, there was nothing wrong with them two just being amazing friends,
Mhm.
and the whole show was about meeting the mother and falling in love with the mother and everything. And then they just all of a sudden just like, nah, we're done with her. We'll just take her out of the equation and go back to Ted and Robin. It's just like, no, I don't agree. So there were a lot of people that didn't care for that ending. I don't know, do you have more on that?
Yeah, like you said, I kind of see why they did it the way that they did, but after the first like 7 or 8 seasons being, just us dying to even get a glimpse or to get any kind of information about anything about the mother, what she looks like, personality, or anything. And then when they finally do bring her on so close to the end, and it wasn't even like her character was like a bad character or anything.
Right.
Like
She was a great person. Yes,
yeah,
they really connected well. They did, everything was great between them, and yeah.
yeah, and then all of a sudden, like you almost like your heart sank, one because she was sick and that whole situation, and you hate to see that in anyone.
Yeah.
But then also your heart sank for Ted, in the sense that he had tried so hard throughout the entire series to find the one, and he was always doing, everything he could for the people that he cared about and loved, and would go all in on these relationships. And when he finally did find the one, and he was going all in and doing everything that he could for her, and she
Yeah.
just gets sick, and everything that he had worked for and all this love that he showed was just kind of ripped away from him.
Right. Right. Yeah. It was the whole series worth of leading up to this one person, meeting this one person and falling in love with this one person. And then all of a sudden it just was like, it was like almost do it all for naught kind of deal. It's just, he did all this and all this storytelling, everything was for naught because they just kind of took her right back out of the equation. It was weird. Yeah, the whole series was so good, and then that at the very end, it was very questionable. That's for sure. It was very questionable.
Yeah. And I honestly, I think the reason why it worked out that way is after I had watched the entire series a second time, I ended up like getting really mad about that ending, like even more so than when I witnessed it the first time.
Yeah.
And so I had started Googling like as much as I could about this ending. And one of the things I read is apparently the producers or the writers of the show had actually planned that he was going to get back together with Robin in the end,
Yeah.
like since like the first season. And so I think, you had mentioned earlier that, maybe the show shouldn't have gone on as long as it did. So I think to a point, they just didn't know how to wrap that story arc back around. And it just stinks the way that they did it, just because like one of the big things with Ted and throughout the whole show was that he was always hitting bumps in the road. He was always, kind of down on his luck, if you would. And whenever they showed the mother how they met and like how happy they were, you really thought that was kind of like his happy ending, and he was
Right.
finally going to get that. And then just for them to take it all away. I mean, granted, he still did get his happy ending.
Yeah.
But just not the way I expected that show to play out.
No, that's for sure. But they did end up releasing, like I said, they did end up releasing the alternate ending where they basically just cut it off before she died. So they go up to the point where they meet and they fall in love and everything, and they just kind of cut it off after they get married or whatever, and just he's there talking with his kids again, but there's no mention of her dying and him going after Robin again. So I vote got one vote for the alternate ending here, that's for sure. Yeah, like you said, that's a good way to put it, as the whole series was kind of him dealing with his bad luck, and then you finally get to the end where you're like, okay, maybe his luck has finally changed, and he's got this amazing woman, and they fell in love, and he's got his happy ending. Well, not so much in the one ending, but yeah, it was definitely questionable. Definitely questionable. But I like you said also is that I understand that they wanted to go back and circle all the way back around to Ted and Robin. And they probably didn't know how else to take the mother out of the equation, I guess, other than to kill her off. And I don't know, it was questionable. I don't know. It was weird.
The only thing I will say that I am in favor of the original ending for, although let me put a disclaimer here. I'm not in favor of it being the ending. I'm in favor of like the whole scenario. So that show, one of the reasons why I liked that show a lot was you had mentioned earlier, it was very good at portraying like some real life situations and kind of how to handle those situations, or just how to get through them.
Yeah.
And I thought that scene was pretty huge in regard to that, because
stuff like that happens.
Yeah. And like you and I both have never personally experienced something like that, but I can imagine how difficult it would be if, your wife had passed away, the mother of your children had passed away, and it had been, a significant amount of time, and you want to start, moving on.
Yeah.
And how you would handle that with your children and whatnot.
Yeah. That's definitely a good point, where it is very relatable in the reality sense, where it's not always a super happy ending, but at the same time, like you said, Ted was still in a happy place. He dealt with the fact that she moved on, or that she passed, and that he is ready to go out and look for somebody else again, and perhaps it being Aunt Robin. And yeah, it was like you said, a very real moment and very relatable moment in that sense, but I still didn't like it.
Yeah, same.
But either way, the show was a huge part of our lives, very influential, very relatable, very funny, just an absolute fantastic show. And so what leads this all into what I'm hopefully looking forward to is the announcement of a spinoff. So they recently announced a spinoff. It's going to be called How I Met Your Father. And so I believe it's going to be released next year. Let me see if I can find the date here. If they have an actual date yet. Not really, but so How I Met Your Father has been announced that they're in production and everything. And so it's going to be the same kind of scenario where the main character is talking to her son and telling the story of how she met his father. And so I'm excited about it. I don't know if they're going to be able to have enough, hopefully, they're going to have enough content to be able to keep it different enough from How I Met Your Mother, but still have the same connections and same similarities. The main character is played by Hilary Duff. So a well-known name, from her main role in Lizzie McGuire. So she was a Disney actor back in the day on Lizzie McGuire. She's the main character in that. and good actor, good person. So what's funny to me is I was talking to you earlier about how some of these Disney actors back in the day would always be getting into all kinds of trouble and stuff, but she's one of the ones that you really haven't heard get into much trouble. So she's lived a good life. She hasn't gotten herself into trouble, and she's one of the good ones, the Disney stars. So good to see her. Hopefully in this role that How I Met Your Father is in its way, on the way. So I don't know if there's too many other well-known actors that have been announced yet, but no, either way, I'm excited for it. I'm going to tune in and see what it's like.
Me too. I'm hoping it doesn't fall flat. Having a spinoff of How I Met Your Mother is some pretty hefty shoes to fill.
Yeah.
And the thing I think it's going to be critiqued too hard, just because so How I Met Your Mother was 9 seasons long, or 8 or 9 seasons long, and no one thought that show was going to be how that show was just from its first season.
Right.
And so it's going to be really hard, like you said, to relate it to the other one, but have it different enough so that way it's still entertaining.
Right.
And like, I just think it's going to be really hard to think of it as a good show while still viewing it in similar eyes to How I Met Your Mother.
Yeah, because there's going to be so many people comparing it to How I Met Your Mother, and it's one of those things where you can't expect a sequel to be as good as the original.
Yep.
So they released the sequel to Full House. There's the Fuller House on Netflix, and I didn't quite reach up to the same standards of original Full House. So I have, you're hopeful, but you got to think about it that it's not going to probably be as good as the original. But we'll see. Either way.
I'm excited for it either way.
Yeah. Hopefully it's the same kind of, funny moments, but relatable and heartfelt and heartwarming moments as well. So hopefully they're going in the same direction, but like you said, it's got to be different enough and intriguing enough to be able to pull people back in.
I'm excited that they're making the setting, or like the time frame, be in 2021.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, hopefully this show, if it leads up to the potential that it could have, hopefully it does the same thing for like these younger kids and the people in their late 20s and whatnot that it did for us, that How I Met Your Mother did for us when we were growing up.
Right.
Just since it's, in this time frame, hopefully a lot of the younger people will relate to it and just really resonate with it.
Have the same type of impact that it did on us. Yeah. Yeah, because they might not have, you think about it, those young people this day and age probably don't really know about How I Met Your Mother or really watched about it. So it'd be good to see a show have the same type of impact on them that it did on us. Yeah, absolutely. All right, so that's what's on the way. How I Met Your Father, like we said, hopefully it's as good as How I Met Your Mother, or at least close. Do you remember? I think it was on Hulu, right? I think they said it's on Hulu. Okay, yeah. So it's on Hulu. Just the first season announced so far, which not too big of a surprise there. But first season, I believe, is 10 episodes, and we'll see. Hopefully it succeeds. Hopefully it's done well, and we've got a good sequel to How I Met Your Mother. I'd be excited about it. So, all right, guys, that takes care of the How I Met Your Mother, How I Met Your Father talk. Let's cap this episode off with a nice, bright story from Paul. Paul, you got a bright story for us.
Yes. So this one actually kind of took me a little while to think of, just because it's something that I've been doing for a while now, and it's something that I didn't think about it being kind of anything worth mentioning. Like, didn't think about it as a bright story. It's just kind of something that happened and I kept doing, and like, I don't know, I just didn't think twice about it, you know. So one of the guys that I work with, he and his wife got married, and they moved into some housing on post. Very shortly after they had moved into this house, and he moved out of the barracks and into this house, his car had broken down, and he hasn't had any way to fix his car, and that was the only vehicle they had. So with him being like, so just to give you a layout, the barracks is usually right across the street pretty much from where we work. So he didn't really have any issues getting to work or anything before then, regardless of a car or not.
Right.
So once they moved, one day he just asked me, hey, can you take me to work? And he had asked me this rate when we had went on, the whole base had went on like a vacation, like it was like for Christmas leave or something. It wasn't for Christmas, but it was something like that, you know?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, no problem. I don't normally go through that gate on base, but since there won't be as much traffic or anything because of everyone being away, I'll come pick you up, and you know, I can take you to work and stuff. So I started doing that, and then once everyone came back, I just kept doing it. Like I never stopped swinging by and picking them up, and I just started leaving my house a little earlier in the morning so I could miss most of the traffic at the gate. And kind of like how Marshall and Ted bonded over that 500 miles song.
Yeah.
You know, just seeing him every single day for our short 5-minute car ride, and I always was playing something different on the radio. Like he would start to hop into the car if I didn't have anything playing yet. He'd be like, "What are we listening to today?"
Nice.
Yeah, and so ever since then, you know, I've just been picking him up. It's been like 6 months or so now. I picked him up every day, and then I got my motorcycle license and I started driving that to work. And I said, you know what, before I send you off with not having a ride, here's like some 3 people that we work with that I know live relatively near you that,
could check,
you know, could hook you up. And he said, okay. So I rode my motorcycle a couple of times to work, and he never asked those people. I found out that he ended up walking to work, and that's a pretty hefty walk. I was like, all right, well, so now I still take the car in the morning every once in a while. It worked out that I have this class, I'm in this class now, so I don't have to be there at the same time. But I've still been going in the morning to go to the gym. So I'm like, hey, if you're willing to wake up just a little bit earlier, I'll pick you up, and then you can be at work and everything. And the twist to this story is that the guy that I'm talking about was actually my buddy Ralph that we were playing Apex with the other day. And so that bond of just simply, you know, 5 minutes in the car every day, we've become pretty good friends.
Yeah. So it came to a routine that he was looking forward to every morning, and like you said, with the whole song, like gets in the car, oh man, what do we listen to today? Yeah, you know, it was something he was looking forward to. Not only you know the song, but your companionship, you know, your friendship. That's awesome. Yeah, just like you said, a simple carpool turns into a great friendship.
And it was the music thing was actually something I was really looking forward to too, because once he had pointed out that I had actually accidentally been playing something new every single time, once he said that, I was like, crap, I can't repeat any music anymore.
I gotta make sure I have a new song every day.
Yeah.
So, that's fantastic.
And that had actually I had to ask my wife a few times, hey, what should I play tomorrow? Like in preparation for us to be listening to this new music.
Oh my gosh. Instead of laying out your outfit for the next day, you got to lay out your song for the next day.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. That's great. That's awesome. That's absolutely a fantastic bright story. I love it. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you got to meet a good friend and a good person just through circumstance. And that's how it works, guys. You just being there for somebody, just somebody who needed something one day ends up being a you know, hopefully a lifelong relationship, a lifelong friendship. So just be there, just do those nice things for somebody. Whether or not they need it, is one thing or another, but just being there for somebody, just doing something nice for somebody, you never know what might come out of it. Not only did you probably, make his day that first time you did so, or made his week, but you changed each other's lives.
Yep.
So never hurts to be there for somebody. It's a simple thing. Like you said, all you have to do is wake up a couple minutes early to drive in, pick them up and drive in a little bit early. And, not a huge deal to you, but it ended up being a huge deal for both of your lives. So that's all it takes, guys. It's all it takes. It's just a simple act. And you're making somebody's day. You're making your day. It's just a huge, huge impact by just doing such a little thing. So get out there and make your own bright stories, make your own bright connections, guys. Please, every day, think about somebody else. Do something little. You're changing their lives. You're changing your life. And you just never know what kind of impact it can make on either one of your lives. So it's going to keep the world going, keep the world moving toward a brighter future. And again, it's such a simple thing to do, whether it be something like that, or whether it just be being friendly with a stranger that you walk by on the street. It's any little thing can help. Any little thing can make a difference. And the more people that are influenced to do it, the more people that are going out of their way, just in the slightest fashion, can improve the world in such a great way. And the more people that do it, the more people that are sharing that they're doing it and being an influence to others, the better.
Absolutely.
So, all righty, guys. That'll do it for the episode. Paul, as always, it's been a pleasure, sir. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you for having me. It's been a real honor.
You bet. It's been an honor.
Absolutely, my dude.
All right. So guys, thanks again for joining. Hope you enjoyed our talk on How I Met Your Mother, How I Met Your Father. If you haven't watched the show, try to tune in. I know it's on a couple of the streaming platforms. So tune in, check it out. It's an absolutely fantastic show. Obviously, you could tell it made a huge influence on our lives. And otherwise, that's it, guys. Have a wonderful and bright week. Again, go do something for somebody nice. Somebody nice, yes, but go do something nice for somebody. Enjoy your week. Have a good one. And we'll see you next time, guys. Take care.